thing really over. Speed and wash never get discussed. The frog you jump, my mommy having fun to say. Wash your clothes, girl. Wash your clothes, girl. Wash your clothes, girl. It goes all clean. Wash your clothes, girl. Wash your clothes, girl. Wash your clothes, girl. It goes all clean. Catch the crab, boy. Catch the crab, boy. Catch the crab, boy. Crab, boy. Catch the crab, boy. Catch the crab, boy. Catch the crab, boy. The crab, boy. Papa ready to go in the boat. Grab the boat, then take out the torpedo. Say, Mama, come on, let me go. Let's spell you right down to the big blue hole. With a snap of bite, I'm so nice, girl. We can have crab and rice. It's not the nice thing. Spell the boat, Papa. Spell the boat, Papa. Spell the boat right down to the blue hole.
Eyewitness News is brought to you by the new BTC. Fiber is here, faster, stronger, more reliable. Together, we're unstoppable. Switch today.
I'd like to get to the point where people become more conscious of what they do, how they treat their children.
We have to work assiduously throughout this country to ensure that we're getting a message across that our young children need better ways of living, and we have to improve to give them the opportunity.
The journalist is important to our society, and we need to lift them up more and give them the sense of place, wherever they are, the respect that they require.
The country mourning the sudden and unexpected loss of one of its prominent political figures today. Good evening, everyone. I'm Janae Nawal, and thanks so much for joining us. We begin with live coverage tonight. Our Jose Etienne at the Odyssey International Airport, Theo Seeley over in Grand Bahama, and Leah Cooper at the Office of the Prime Minister. Cabinet Minister Obie Wilchcombe, known for his dedicated service to the nation, passed away this morning in Grand Bahama, leaving a void in the heart of Bahamian politics and the community that he served. Wilchcombe's sudden demise has sent shockwaves through the political landscape as colleagues, friends, and citizens grapple with this news. And as the nation comes to terms with this devastating loss, preparations are already being made as his body arrived in the capital less than an hour ago. Our Jose Etienne is standing by live at Odyssey International with the latest. Jose, what can you tell us? Jose? We are having some difficulty with communication with Jose at this hour, but Jose, if you can hear me, what is the latest happening at the airport at this hour? Still having some difficulty with Jose. We are going to go live now to our Theo Seeley.
At the Odyssey Airport here in Western New Providence, where the remains of the Social Services, Information and Broadcasting Minister Obie Wilchcombe would have arrived here in country after being in Grand Bahama for the majority of the day. He left here days ago, last week, to head to Grand Bahama for a number of events there. But today, just his remains returned to Nassau. As it relates to today's proceedings, the aircraft arrived at 5:55 p.m. and shortly thereafter, his remains was taken out of the plane to be received by an honor guard that included Wilchcombe's colleagues from both the House of Parliament and the Cabinet of the Bahamas. And shortly after, the body was placed into the hearse and taken away during an escort. Now, this comes as Wilchcombe died this morning Eyewitness News was made to understand shortly after 8 o'clock this morning that he was found unresponsive in Grand Bahama and confirmed dead moments later. We know that his remains was kept in the Rand Memorial Hospital for the majority of the day, and during that time, the nation's chief Prime Minister Philip Davis got to see the remains of his social services minister. Hours later, his remains have been brought to the capital, and Eyewitness News was made to understand that he has been taken to the morgue. Now, Janae, I'm sure you'd understand that the country is officially in a state of mourning as officials and residents and supporters of Mr. Wilchcombe now have to deal with and grapple with the sudden passing of the country's social services minister. Of course, we know Wilchcombe would have started his political career in 1994, and to date, he served as the country's social services and information and broadcasting minister. I spoke with a number of his colleagues, and majority of them, if not all of them, bragged about him being a pioneering politician. They argue that he is a historian. He is one who is beloved within the Progressive Liberal Party, and so you'd imagine that PLP members, PLP officials are obviously taking this very hard. Of course, they had to deal with the passing of the wife of their fellow colleague Keith Bell, who passed yesterday as a result of a battle with cancer. Now today, PLP officials, PLP supporters now have to deal with the passing of their beloved Social Services Minister, Obie Wilchcombe. Of course, we know he would have served previously as a Minister of Tourism. Up to this point, he served the country as the Social Services Minister. Considering that he is a sitting member of Parliament, he is a sitting cabinet minister, we do expect for a state funeral to be held here in the capital. We do know that in the halls of Parliament, he would have represented the people of West Grand Bahama and Bimini. Of course, our Theo Seeley was in Grand Bahama all day. We will get an opportunity to hear from him in a moment where he will bring to us details from Grand Bahama, but we will be heading to Bimini tomorrow to get the details from residents and officials there on that island. Of course, that's an island he would have also represented in the halls of Parliament. But again, today, Janea, the country is in a state of mourning as the country, the government, and the residents of this country now have to deal with the passing of Social Services Minister Obie Wilchcombe. Of course, we will continue to follow the story, and in a moment we will hear from our Theo Seeley, who will be bringing us a live drop from Grand Bahama. Reporting live from the Odyssey Airport, where the remains of the fallen Social Services Minister Obie Wilchcombe would have arrived. I'm Jose Atin, reporting live for Eyewitness News. Back to Janelle.
Thanks so much for that, Jose. Well, Prime Minister Philip Davis also announcing that flags are to be flown at half-staff today as the country is officially in mourning. Our Theo Seeley traveling to Grand Bahama early this morning, moments after news broke of the minister's passing. He has reaction on the ground tonight. Theo?
Good evening, Janea. Just 12 hours shy since news broke here on Grand Bahama Island that veteran politician and former broadcaster Obie Wilchcombe passed away here on island. Now, we've been following the story here on the ground. In fact, we touched down at the Grand Bahama International Airport on the same flight that a number of Wilchcombe's family members traveled on today. That flight touched down at around 12:30 this afternoon. Their family members then made their way here to the Rand Memorial Hospital, and just about 1 hour later at 1:30 p.m., those very same family members emerged these front doors behind me, reeling with emotion. Family members and longtime supporters of the Progressive Liberal Party gathering outside the Rand Memorial Hospital and the PLP headquarters today to show their support and love for a man whom many remember as the backbone of the PLP, a void which they say cannot be replaced, an unfathomable loss.
A tremendous loss. In fact, not only for the PLP, which is the majority now, but the entire Grand Bahama, Bimini. He could never be replaced.
That's Cynthia Donaldson, a PLP stalwart councillor. We interviewed her in the very same spot where Wilchcombe made his last appearance Sunday night at a PLP Women's Branch meeting here at the party's headquarters in Freeport, Grand Bahama. Donaldson shared what she remembered from that last encounter.
After he did his address, which was very timely, and he had a lot of compassion in his address, especially for the abuse of women. And afterwards, we went outside. He had to do a press release, but he stopped about a minute before he had to do the press release to meet a young lady who had to leave. And he made a comment, "This is as important as the press release. I'll get to the press release," which I thought was very humbling.
A move which she says is typical Obie Wilchcombe, a man of the people.
Wherever you met him, he was never, ever too busy to stop and listen, and as much as he can help, he would help.
Austin Bernard Davis, also a PLP stalwart counselor who spent many years working with the former cabinet minister, attended last night's PLP Women's Branch meeting. Austin recalls his last moments with the former MP.
It was a warm handshake and reflected one or two items on the past, never thinking anything could have been wrong at the time. He was in a good mood, he was in good spirits, and his expressions were, quite normal.
Now, in the wake of his passing, Austin fondly remembers Wilchcombe's contribution to the country.
And I feel that he is one of the seasoned men of the party who have been able to, on his feet, fill any spot or any void on any program.
After wrapping up our chat with those long-serving PLP supporters at the party's headquarters, we made our way back to the Rand Memorial Hospital. At around 4:04 p.m., a pearl-colored casket was wheeled up the side entrance of that facility. By 4:16 p.m., Wilchcombe's family members returned. At around 4:27, the body of the late cabinet minister was wheeled out of the Rand Memorial Hospital and into this white hearse. At 4:35 p.m., the body of the late Obie Wilchcombe, former member of parliament for West End and Bimini, was escorted to the Grand Bahama International Airport by police to be flown back to the capital. Janaea, residents here on the ground in Grand Bahama, namely the Freeport area where we canvassed today, still reeling with shock that a man who gave so much of his life to nation building has passed away. We expect to travel to his constituency in West End, Grand Bahama tomorrow, where we expect the atmosphere to be the same, very somber, as this community and the nation at large mourns for a man who gave so much of his life to build this country. Reporting live from the Rand Memorial Hospital here on Grand Bahama Island, I'm Theo Seeley, sending it back to you live on the desk, Janaea.
Thanks so much, Theo. Well, Wilchcombe's death coming as a shock to many. Prior to entering the political arena, Wilchcombe had a distinguished career as a journalist. He joined the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas in 1975. During his 25 years of service there, he was deputy news director, assistant general manager. Wilchcombe also embarked on his political career in August of 1994 when he was appointed as senator by the late Sir Lyndon Pinling. In 1995, he ascended to the position of chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party, and following the general elections of 1997, Perry Christie, the then opposition leader, reappointed him to the Senate. On May 2nd of 2002, Mr. Wilchcombe took the oath of office as the Minister of Tourism and achieved record-breaking figures in the terms of tourist arrivals and expenditure. He most recently served under the now Davis administration as the Minister of Social Services. He pushed women's rights and gender equality to the forefront. His death undoubtedly taking many by surprise, as he just spoke to the women's branch in Grand Bahama last night, and all appeared to be well with the minister, as he stressed that he was more about action than show and tell.
You might not see it in the media because I have established a policy position. What we do for the poor, that ain't nobody does. You're not going to see me taking pictures, giving things to people. You're not going to see me doing that at all. I don't do it. That's my policy. Take care of people. And that's it. Lift the people, exactly. I'm not going to ride on there or show some income in their lives. I'm not doing that.
Well, Wilchcombe also urged the members of the women's branch to educate themselves on government's policy position on women's rights and violence against women.
I want you to educate yourself about what we found. We found ministers recognize that despite high-level political support and concerted efforts to eradicate all forms of violence against women and girls, rates of women and violence against girls remain persistently high. Levels of sexual and or physical abuse remains at about 1 in 3 women. This affects 736 million women worldwide. In just 1 year, 45,000 women and girls lost their lives at the hands of their partners and family members. I want you to read these documents. I want you to equip yourself because I want you to participate in forthcoming conventions. I want you to be able to come to events and speak to these issues. Let's take these issues and make them real. Let's take these among the people. Let's go to our various branches and the women's branch lead convention of sorts where we can discuss these issues.
Well, as we said, Wilchcombe made those comments last night at a women's branch meeting at PLP headquarters in Grand Bahama. Well, Prime Minister Philip Davis, along with other parliamentary colleagues, including the Education Minister, Glenys Martin, also in Grand Bahama earlier today, hours after the minister's death was confirmed, he spoke briefly with reporters on this tragic and sudden loss.
He's noted for bringing the film industry here. But unfortunately, the way politics goes, once you're out, those who come in tend to have a tendency of rolling back what you did. But we had a thriving film industry right here in Grand Bahama. The Pirates, was the movie called Pirates of the Caribbean 1 and 2, they all made right here, all at the instance of Obie Wilchcombe. In tourism, our brand of being a tourist, sports tourism, he's the one that started, and we are still riding on that to this day. And we are hosting international world-class events as a result of his efforts. And yes, we have 8 million tourists coming in today. But again, it started with the foundation laid by him. And for that, we are always very grateful. And you know, one of his famous saying, one love. One love. One love. And let us, and that's his word of view, because that one love signifies unity, signifies compassion, and a deep love for humanity, which he had.
Well, Minister Wilchcombe's cabinet and parliamentary colleagues also speaking to the press at the Office of the Prime Minister today. Our Leah Cooper speaking with a number of them. She joins me live tonight from the OPM with the details. Leah?
Janaea, truly a shock. That's how cabinet ministers and senators are describing hearing the news of Minister Wilchcombe's untimely death. Minister Wilchcombe was described by them as a lover of history, someone who had a wealth of knowledge and offered his unwavering support to them throughout their political careers.
He was a mentor to me. We met frequently, speaking about the way forward, speaking about development and mentorship of young people. He was respected across party lines. He was fair. He was somebody that always believed in giving your best. Is somebody I would bounce my speeches off. He would encourage me to participate as much as possible. He would critique me, and I would take that as valuable advice on how to improve.
Energy and Transport Minister JoBeth Colby Davis reflects on her last conversation with Minister Wilchcombe.
It was last week, Monday, we were at the Prime Minister's office, casually speaking about different various topics, and he was mentioning how he's preparing for the opening of Parliament and how he wanted to make sure that, like he did the first time, the women stood out again in our contributions. And just to think that he was already preparing for that day and making sure that role was executed to perfection almost, and to make sure that he continued to realize the importance of what women lend to politics, and knowing that he carried such a role and his portfolio being gender affairs as well, how much he believed in women excelling and being a part of us excelling. And you'll hear that constantly from the female colleagues, because he just was that type of person to work with.
Wilchcombe also served as leader of government business in the House of Assembly, and National Security Minister Wayne Munro says one could place confidence in him under that role.
He would have an overall plan of how he, for want of a better word, would deploy the forces available to him in the debate. He was a man who spoke from his heart at all times. He always spoke about what we could be as a people. And he never lost hope, regardless of how vexed vexing a situation could be. I remember when he spoke to me about the young women who were trafficked, young girls who were trafficked, and his passion that we not only had to bring the perpetrators to justice, but his focus was always, what do we do about the people who are hurt?
Well, certainly the Bahamas has lost a titan on the political and broadcasting arena. Reporting live from the Office of the Prime Minister, I'm Leah Cooper, sending it back to you, Janea.
Thanks so much, Leah. Of course, we are continuing to provide team coverage tonight. Our Jose Etienne was at the Odyssey International Airport, Theo Seeley over in Grand Bahama, and Leah Cooper at the Office of the Prime Minister today. Well, we are still reflecting on the life and legacy of the late Member of Parliament, Obie Wilchcombe, speaking with those who worked closely with him over the years. Our Laurentia Smith has more on that.
He had a vast trough of knowledge about politics of the country and its history. So we've lost institutional memory.
PLP Chairman and Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell spoke with us on the passing of his longtime friend and colleague, the late MP for the West End and Bimini constituency, Obie Wilchcombe. When asked what comes to mind when he thinks about the late minister, Mitchell says,
Well, I think of him as the champion for Grand Bahama. He never missed an opportunity to speak up for Grand Bahama. And he was particularly pleased that he was able to be a part of a government that's finally moving on the Grand Bahama Port Authority and trying to clean up that situation in Grand Bahama, because he never supported the idea of the Hawksbill Creek Agreement. He thought that Grand Bahamians had been put at a huge disadvantage under the Hawksbill Creek Agreement.
now, Mitchell and Wilchcombe worked together as journalists before serving together in both the Christie and the Davis cabinet together, even sitting next to each other in cabinet meetings. Their relationship, he says, started back in the 1970s.
In 1977, Queen Elizabeth came here to open Parliament. And the Prime Minister, I was then working at the Bahamas Information Services, so Sir Lyndon Findling asked me to move to the Broadcasting Corporation, where I later became the Director of News and Public Affairs. He was then a sports reporter up in Freeport's Northern Service. I thought he was being underutilized there, so I asked him to move to Nassau. And of course, that was the beginning of his public career as a broadcaster, and ultimately led to his being able to run for the House.
We spoke with veteran journalist Debbie Bartlett. She says that Wilchcombe has been her boss from the 80s, working alongside him in ZNS newsroom, and over the last year as a consultant within the Ministry of Social Services.
I love the Lord. I've changed my life. And so that gives me a peace. Like, I don't know if I could have said that many years ago. And I saw this transition from somebody who was always a public figure but an introvert. But we know that in our youth, we are not as focused. And I saw the transition to becoming more conservative, and after having some experience with illness, he talked a lot about his spiritual life.
Laurentia Smith, Eyewitness News.
The opposition is also remembering the late Obie Wilchcombe tonight. Arlia Cooper has the details in this report.
Members of the opposition offering their condolences today to Minister Wilchcombe's immediate and extended family, members of the Progressive Liberal Party, and members of the press. Opposition leader Michael Pintard, at a press conference held at his office this afternoon, reflects on Wilchcombe's days as a young journalist. He says he was articulate, well-researched, and had a penchant for quoting history.
He parlayed the considerable support he had garnered as a journalist into a strong base that later supported him when he decided to enter frontline politics. Those of us who operated opposite Obie Wilchcombe, we were keenly aware that if you were speaking on the same platform that he was speaking on, that you had to be thoroughly prepared. Once again, he brought his wit, sometimes his humor, but certainly a historical perspective to the various issues that he addressed.
Pintard adds that Wilchcombe will certainly be missed, not only in Parliament, but across the country.
We have all received, all of my colleagues have received calls from throughout the Bahamas and from persons abroad who, like us, were in disbelief when we learned about his passing. And so as a party, we wish to pause. We believe it is important for us to pay tribute to our colleague.
He also took the time to acknowledge Housing and Urban Development Minister Keith Bell, who lost his wife, Clara Taylor Bell, just yesterday.
And a number of us have also reached out to him, seeking to extend condolence to him and his family. And as we grieve for our colleagues, we also grieve with many Bahamian families who today, from different vocations, different walks of life, are traveling the same journey of grief. And that has a way of helping us to recognize what's important. And while the issues we debate in Parliament and address on behalf of the Bahamian people are extremely important and we'll continue to address them, we want to remember the families who have recently laid loved ones to rest. And we pray that God would provide healing in this most difficult time.
Leah Cooper, Eyewitness News.
Well, if you've got a news tip or if you've seen news in the making, call the News hotline at 397-6397. We also invite you to send your letters to the editor for publication on all of our social media platforms at eyewitnessnewsbahamas@gmail.com. And if you're watching on our Facebook or YouTube page, share your thoughts about today's stories in the comments section. We want to hear from you. We are just getting started in Eyewitness News tonight, but when we come back, more parliamentary colleagues react to his passing. We've got that story coming up. And later, we hear from those who know him best as a friend. We've got more on that right after this break.
Brought to you by Lupayan Car Rental. Great rental, great service, and great cars.
Welcome back. Here's a look at your Eyewitness News gas tracker. $6.14, your local average for a gallon of gas. You'll be getting the cheapest tonight at Shell, $6.11. Esso, $6.12. And Bluebus, the highest, $6.17. Well, as the country continues to grapple with the passing of the late West End and Bimini MP. Many are asking what will happen to his seat in the lower chamber. Our Laurencia Smith speaking with David Forbes, the parliamentary clerk, who provided insight on what happens next.
The Parliamentary Elections Act say that the Governor General, as soon as possible, must issue a writ for election for that seat. And those elections must be held in no less than 21 days and no more than 30 days.
Quick action will have to be taken for a by-election following the death of Social Services Minister and MP for West End and Grand Bahama and Bimini, Obie Wilchcombe. This according to David Forbes, the clerk of the House of Assembly. Wilchcombe also served as the leader of government business, shoes that Forbes says will be hard to fill.
Minister Wilchcombe. In the House of Assembly, the Prime Minister will have to, that's a cabinet thing, so he will have to choose who is going to replace him as the leader of government business in the House. I'm actually quite interested to find out who that's going to be. But it is a sad and tragic passing, Minister Wilchcombe. He and I worked very closely together because of the work that he does. The minister responsible for, or the government leader in the House, and the clerk has a very close professional relationship because we have to help him to get his business through and to keep him on target with what he's trying to do. So we always discuss what is going to happen. He and I talk either the morning before the House meets or the day before the House meets, letting us know what the government intends to do, what measures they intend to make, which bills they intend to advance, who is going to make communications and all of the rest of that. He briefed me on all of those things so that I can make sure that everything is lined up, and that's why you have smooth proceedings upstairs in the House of Assembly.
Wilchcombe's political career began in 1994, serving as MP, senator, and cabinet minister. He was the tourism minister in the Christie administration, and under the Davis administration, he served as the Minister of Social Services and Urban Development, and recently taken up the post as Minister of Social Services with responsibility of information and broadcasting. With a new session of Parliament expect to open on October 4th, Forbes says a new appointment of leader of government business can happen at any time.
But you usually would find the leader of the government business in the House really jumping into their role by the second meeting when you're going to have first reading of bills and all the rest of that stuff. I don't know how much they're going to do and how much is going to go on the agenda next week, Wednesday. But certainly by the following meeting, they're likely to fill up the agenda with the government's business.
Before the news of Wilchcombe's death, Forbes says that he had just signed a letter for him to receive.
And I was just writing a letter to Minister Wilchcombe, supposed to deliver it to him today, to let him know that, you have to let the Speaker know who you are suggesting or recommending to fill the government's position on these committees. Because most of the committees have like 5 members, and so who are your 3, and who are the opposition leader will have to tell us who are there too.
Now, when Mr. Wilchcombe moved the motion to adjourn the House on the 27th of July, he nor his colleagues did not know that would be the last time he would serve as the leader of government business on the chamber floors. Laurencia Smith, Eyewitness News.
Well, Eyewitness News did speak with Progressive Liberal Party Chairman Fred Mitchell, who says it's too early to say who will be the next candidate for the West End and Bimini constituency. Wilchcombe was first elected to that seat in 2002, winning 3 times, until 2017 when he lost the seat to Pakeisha Parker Edgecombe. However, he staged a comeback and was elected once again in 2021.
Early days for that yet. I don't think we need to be discussing that just now. People are trying to absorb this bad news and trying to recover from that, and I think we ought to let there be an appropriate period of solemnity to deal with this, as opposed to trying to figure out what's going to happen with that. Just suffice it to say, the legal processes, whatever they are, will be followed. There certainly won't be any default in that, but I think it's early days for that, right?
Well, Obie Wilchcombe's life impacted many of those whom he worked with, including other journalists within the profession, one of them recalling those fondest moments with her colleague and friend.
I'm still numb. I'm in shock. I can't believe this. Because, like I said, we've been working together for the past couple of weeks, and Obie seemed fine. And to get this news this morning has been devastating.
Veteran journalist and broadcaster Michelle Malcolm served with Wilchcombe at the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas, or ZNS.
The Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas in 1985. Obie was still at university in UWI. The Broadcasting Corporation apparently sent him there. And shortly thereafter, he came back and was named news director. So even though I was hired by Ed Bethel, the majority of my career at the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas was under Obie Wilchcombe as my boss.
She says during their time there, though complex, was one of professionalism and respect. She remembers him as not only a boss, but a friend who she said ruled with an iron fist.
Obie was tough as a boss, really tough. And, you know, as a young reporter, you would be sent out to cover these news stories, and you come back and you write what you think is a boss script. And you put that in his hand, and he read it over, suck his teeth, and throw it back at you and say, do it again. And I'm like, can you tell me what's wrong with it? No, just go do it again. And there were times when I had to write one script like 6 times before I finally figured out what was wrong with it. Because his method was, if I tell you, you're not going to learn how to be better.
His departure from ZNS in 1992 was with mixed emotion, she said. With the political landscape changing, Wilchcombe wanted out.
The movement won in 92. There was so much uncertainty, and the rumors were swirling about the changes they were going to make. And you know, he said to me, you know, we're hearing some things that they're going to do, and it's not going to be good for you if you stay. And I said, you know, let me pray about it, let me think about it. And at the end of the day, I didn't feel led to leave at that time. And so I said, I'm sorry, Obie, I can't join you all.
And although journalism might have been his first love, Malcolm says he always had political aspirations.
But he always had his eyes set on politics. And he always used to say to me, you have to call me honorable one day. And I said, dude, don't hold your breath. And so when it actually happened, I was like, well, by doggone it. Mm-hmm. So when I saw him after he had won that first time, I said, you're honorable. And he just burst out laughing because he knew the back and forth that he and I used to have about that, you know?
She later joined Wilchcombe at the Ministry of Tourism, paving the way for new programming. And his work ethic, she said, never wavered.
Expecting you to produce. You know, at the Ministry of Tourism, it was his vision to create Tourism Today, which when we first started that was a half-hour program. And one of my responsibilities was to write, produce, and host that show. And he didn't want to hear any excuses as to why you couldn't get it done. Just get it done.
Malcolm says she also had a recent opportunity to work with Wilchcombe as the Minister of Social Services and says he always had a heart for people. Upon hearing the news of his sudden death, she says she's still in disbelief.
I'm thinking, this can't be real. This can't be real. I'm still numb. I'm in shock. I can't believe this.
His life was well lived, and she says his legacy will continue to live on.
Obie was always about excellence, especially in our field of journalism and broadcasting. If you're going to do it right. He didn't believe in doing it halfway, and he demanded the best of those who worked with him.
Well, it was a somber scene at the Department of Social Services this morning as workers were visibly distraught after learning of the passing of the Social Services Minister, Obie Wilchcombe. However, consultant in the ministry, Debbie Bartlett, telling Eyewitness News that he made his mark on the ministry since assuming office. Bartlett says Wilchcombe's efforts to prioritize the needs of the poor while ensuring that the concerns of workers at the ministry are addressed will always be remembered.
We can be proud of what he has achieved here. He has facilitated the highest number of promotions ever, over 200. He's very sensitive to improving environments. You cannot succeed and maximize your potential if you don't have the right environment. So he tirelessly adjusted environments and had people move out of this building so that they could be accommodated in a more comfortable environment. He increased assistance for the poor. His vision for social services was, this is the heartbeat of the nation, and if our heart is weak, then the nation is weak. How do we get people of the Bahamas from poverty to self-sufficiency to prosperity? That was his dream.
Well, two men who occupy a seat in the Senate where the late Social Services Minister Obie Wilchcombe once served also sharing condolences tonight. Senators Darren Pickstock and Randy Rolls say they're now struggling to cope with the harsh reality that their senior colleague in the Davis administration is gone. But both senators assert that his contributions to his country are immeasurable.
It's a profound loss for us. Mr. Wilchcombe, as you know, meant a lot to the Progressive Liberal Party. He was the minister in charge of social services and also the government's leader of business in the House. And so it's a tremendous loss for us, and we just want to pay our respects. For me, Minister Wilchcombe, back in 1999, when I served as chairman of the PLP Young Liberals, was an avid supporter, and he offered a lot of guidance.
It's with deep sadness. Certainly, we just spoke with him yesterday. We were talking about the Dolphins, Miami Dolphins. Anyone who knew him knew that he was an avid Dolphin fan. He was one who had a wealth of knowledge. Certainly, I used to call him a history book because he would, for young persons like myself, he would tell us about the history of the PLP. He would speak about his times with Sir Lyndon Pinland sitting at the feet. He was one who loved his constituency. He loved his people. He loved his Progressive Liberal Party. He worked tirelessly. He was a journalist at heart and one who did a lot for the people.
Well, despite his passing, both senators say he will be remembered as one who paved the way for young, aspiring politicians to make an impact on their country.
A champion for the people. Also recently spoke to me about a heritage park and again saving the history of the Bahamas and writing down things that are of great significance for the Bahamas.
I will remember the Honorable Obie Wilchcombe as a fighter for the progressive cause. I will remember him as the one who supported me and taught me some of that history. And whenever you speak to Mr. Wilchcombe, we also always have a history lesson for you. And so, I would just remember him as and always talking very, very lovingly about the people of Grand Bahama and Bimini. And so, I would just remember him as a good person, as someone who's always fighting, who always has an open door policy, who's never shining away from the tough conversations.
Well, President of the Bahamas Hotel and Tourism Association, Robert Sands, says that Minister Obie Wilchcombe was a man of service who displayed great dedication to provide for his country with poise and passion.
You would be aware that the Minister Wilchcombe served as Minister of Tourism for 2 terms. His first term in 2002 to 2007, and his second term between 2012 and 2017. And certainly during those years as Minister of Tourism, we've seen tourism numbers grow from 4 million arrivals to over 6.2 million arrivals during the time he certainly served as minister.
Sands recalled Minister Wilchcombe's strong support of Bahamian entrepreneurship in the country and says he was no ordinary individual. He says he was a silent doer who laid the foundation for the Ministry of Tourism.
He showed that the seeds were planted and that the tree will then begin to bear fruit. He's left a strong legacy and for many to follow. And I think the fact that he did a lot of those initiatives nothing will go by the wayside. I think the baton is being passed, and I am very confident and satisfied that certainly the current Minister of Tourism has done and continue to do and build on his legacy and continue the foundational work that he's done in multiple areas.
Well, Bahamas ambassador to the United States and veteran journalist, Neil Jones, also reflecting on the legacy left behind by the late Obie Wilchcombe.
He gave yeoman service in broadcasting as well as politics, and served for 10 non-consecutive years as the Minister of Tourism and passed as the Minister of Social Services. And so he has made a tremendous contribution in the political development of the Bahamas. I remember it was in the 70s that he came into the business of journalism, and he performed admirably. Obie Wilchcombe was a class act, whether it was in broadcasting or in politics.
Jones adds that Wilchcombe, throughout his life, has truly made this country proud.
I remember in his early days when he became chairman of the party, of the Progressive Liberal Party, he was very close with the late Sir Lyndon Pindling. Sir Lyndon looked at him as a mentee, and he indeed took Obie around the world on various assignments. He knew politics and he knew broadcasting, and we need more Obie Wilchcombes in the Bahamas.
Well, Bishop Neil Ellis also reflecting on the untimely death of Minister Wilchcombe. He described himself as his confidant and advisor for the last 20-plus years. He adds that the country has truly lost an icon.
Obie was a consummate Bahamian and a lover of the Bahamas, a lover of people actually, but he loved this country and he just felt that this could be the greatest little country anywhere in the world. As a passing joke with me and Obie, I always said to him, "You really believe I wake miracles?" And because he, like every issue he had, every issue the Bahamas had, he would call me and say, "Man, Bishop, what you can do about that?" But we just had a real good relationship. I will unequivocally miss Minister Wilchcombe. He was very near and dear to me.
Well, coming up in Eyewitness News tonight, the coverage continues on the death of Cabinet Minister Obie Wilchcombe. We hear from residents in Bimini on the other side of this break. But first, here's a check on tonight's weather forecast.
Health is the greatest gift. That's where we come in. Bahamas Medical and Surgical Supplies is a premier distributor of medical equipment, as well as medical and surgical consumables. Our engineers are always on hand, providing top care service that saves lives. We carry a wide selection of over-the-counter and prescription items, IV fluids, and other injections. Our products are state-of-the-art, and our entire team stays on top of cutting-edge technology. With more than 2 decades of dedicated service, Bahamas Medical and Surgical Supplies continues to be a trendsetter and innovator in healthcare. We have set ourselves apart by truly caring for our customers. We understand the intricacies of healthcare and we produce spectacular results. We cherish our partnerships and nurture our friendships as we continue on our quest to help everyone maintain that wonderful gift of good health. Find us on 9th Fifth Terrace, Centerville, right in the heart of the medical service epicenter of Nassau, Bahamas.
Once upon a time, not too far away, CBS Bahamas was born. The year was 1973, and CBS stood before the Bahamas with the promise of becoming the nation's one-stop shop for home building and improvement, from bathroom nuances to paint, windows, doors, and kitchen cabinets. CBS was quickly crowned king by its customers. CBS Bahamas is one of the country's leading home centers, and your proud one-stop shop when bringing your new home to life. CBS is a leading supplier and installer of architectural building products, ready to equip your home with the perfect windows and doors. CBS's goal is to make your life and home build stress-free, so you can live happily ever after in the palace of your dreams, with impeccable quality and a price match guarantee. Feel empowered to live happily ever after with CBS. Build beautiful.
This portion of the news is brought to you by J.S. Johnson, Insurance Agents and Brokers, giving you peace of mind.
Your live look tonight over Coral Harbor. The temperature right around 75 degrees. It's expected to dip to 72. This is Eyewitness News. Welcome back. Bimini residents also reacting tonight to the death of their member of parliament, Devon Roll, who says he's a friend of the late minister. Obie Wilchcombe says that he supported him in the last election and also as vice chair of the party in September of 2021. Other than working closely with the minister, Roll says that he served him as a brother, friend, and mentor for the entire community of Bimini.
Well, you know, everyone who knows Obie's a charismatic guy. He could captivate a room with his voice. You know, he eloquently speaks. And he was a very knowledgeable information guy. He was a journalist. So all of that helped galvanize his career in politics. But he could always captivate a room. And that's what the most memorable thing about him would always be, that how he could captivate a room and get everybody to just listen.
Well, the sudden death of the late minister, he says, has left the island of Bimini saddened. Despite the overwhelming news, Roll says that the legacy of Minister Wilchcombe will continue to thrive as he paved the foundation for the tourism industry in his political years.
To his family and, you know, the whole TLP family, we just pray and reach out and we thank God for him, and then we just need to carry on the things that he left in place to keep continue on fighting for this island and this country.
Well, Office of the Prime Minister communications staff also pouring out their tributes to the late Minister Wilchcombe. OPM Communications Director Latre Ramming describes the news as a deep shock.
He was very strategic in understanding the political landscape of the Bahamas. He knew journalism. He was a broadcaster by heart. And his current and new portfolio as minister responsible for BIS and ZNS, we had just begun several conversations on how we were going to approach government communications. Personally, he was a wealth of knowledge. He was a historical reservoir. He is the conscience of the Progressive Party. He was articulate. He spoke off his feet. This is most certainly a fixture that is going to have to replace, and just by the amount of the outpouring of members of the public. It's very rare when a politician passes away, you get this kind of outcry and remembrance. So it shows you the lives he's been able to impact across our country.
The acting press secretary, Keishla Adderley, also telling us that she's also in disbelief.
Minister Wilchcombe, I remember as someone who had a radiant smile that brightened up the room, and he had the charisma to go along with that. And I think that is something that endeared people to him, both in the profession that he loved of journalism and then in his career in politics. As a journalist, I remember Mr. Wilchcombe always being someone who wanted things to be done perfectly. He wanted all those rules to be followed, every T crossed and every I dotted. And when you would speak to him, he always had a word of encouragement. When you got it right, he congratulated you. When you got something wrong, he was able to offer that constructive criticism. So for me, he was such an inspiration and someone whose footsteps you could follow in, as someone who did whatever task or carried out whatever task they had with excellence. And that is what I will remember most about him.
So to come in Eyewitness News tonight are Loretia Smith. She's back. She has the latest sports updates. Good evening, Laurencia.
Good evening, Janaea. Tonight we reflect the legacy on two sportsmen. I'll tell you more right after this break.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Hennessy, the spirit of sports in the Bahamas.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Eyewitness Sports. I'm Laurencia Smith. Thanks for joining us. Topping sports tonight on a sad note as the country mourns the loss of a political giant in the form of Obie Wilchcombe. Many did not know that he was a sportsman playing both local basketball and local American football, even serving as the president of the Grand Bahama Basketball Association. Now, Eyewitness Sports spoke with Frederick Sturb, former writer for a local daily, who shared that he and Wilchcombe worked closely over the years as journalists, and he reflects on his love for sports.
He was much more than just an athlete or a sports administrator. He understood the history of everything that he was involved in, history of politics, and of course the history of sports and basketball. He would be able to tell you about the Will Chamberlains, the Bill Russells, the Bob Cousy's, everybody who was involved with basketball at the very beginning. And he also knew about the Michael Jordans and the Kobe Bryant. And of course today, the people who are involved at the top tier of basketball today, like Kevin Durant and people of that nature, Steph Curry and those people, he just kept his finger on the pulse of what was happening. And he did the same thing with American football. But he was bigger than all of that, like I said previously, despite his close proximity in terms of his activity in basketball and football, American football, as an athlete and as an administrator. He still had the concern for the development of sports in general. So he was really one of the quality members of the entire national sports fraternity.
Moving trackside, notable track and field historian Alpheus Hawk Finlayson passed over the weekend at the age of 76. Known for his black bowler hat trackside, Finlayson headed the B3As for a number of years, serving as a council member for the IAAF, also known as World Athletics. Respected here at home and internationally for his knowledge on track and field, the current president of the B3As, Jamico Archer, tells us that Finlayson's legacy is unmatched.
The world knew him for his prolific journalist style in reporting track and field news. And so, in short, I think he was a bolt of lightning that really lit up the world of our sport to the point where, I mean, whenever we go to international competition, everyone when they see the black hat on, they know that it's Hawk. And I don't know if we'll ever see a black hat in our sport again.
Now, he served as the former vice president of NACAT. Finlayson made history becoming the first Bahamian elected to the IAAF Council, also known as World Athletics Council today, and is the only Bahamian to attend every World Outdoor Championships from 1983 in Finland to 2017 in England.
And so my fondest memory is his ability to talk about a Bahamian athlete and to give it detail in a way that you almost feel as though you were transplanted back to that time. And he loved track and field. And he was always impartial, and even his talk show is emblematic of the kind of individual that he was. Yeah, I mean, he never gave you much time to talk on the show, but you just sat in amazement to see how this man just gave you a Wikipedia lesson in track and field.
Here at Eyewitness Sports, we extend our condolences to both Minister Wilchcombe and Mr. Finlayson's family. Finally, in sports, Jonquel Jones and the New York Liberty fell short to her former team, the Connecticut Suns, dropping 78-63 in Game 1 of the WNBA semifinal rounds. JJ had 14 points and 11 rebounds. Now, the two teams will play each other again on Tuesday in Brooklyn before taking the series on the road to Connecticut. Well, that's what's making sports at this hour. I'm Laurencia Smith. Janaea will have more news on the other side of the break.
You're watching Eyewitness News.
We're wrapping up news at this hour, but coming up and beyond the headlines with Shanique Miller. Coverage continues tonight. She's speaking with the former colleagues of Cabinet Minister Obie Wilchcombe, who died in Grand Bahama earlier today. That's coming up in Beyond the Headlines. It starts right after this. That does it for us here at Eyewitness News. Once again, I'm Janae Noel saying good night and have a great evening, everyone.
those of management, ownership, or production unit of the Verizon Media Group. Beyond the Headlines is a production of ILTV Studios and cannot be reproduced or represented in part or entirety without express written permission of the Verizon Media Group. Beyond the Headlines is the intellectual property of the Verizon Media Group. Copyright 2021.
Alive, still connected, still with you.
He made a foundational mark in media, then went on to be a competent force in politics. Tonight, the nation mourns the passing of Obie Wilchcombe. Also, the people he worked with in media, people who all grew up professionally together and with their collective talents defined what broadcast media came to be in the Bahamas, reflect on their friend and colleague. We speak with the media and cabinet colleagues and others who work together in other areas in the public service with Obie Wilchcombe as well. We have a report from West End, Washington, D.C., and right here in studio as Obie Wilchcombe is fondly remembered tonight. I was fortunate to sit with the minister for several hours recently. We sat and talked well into the night. We will talk about that later on in tonight's show as well. This is Beyond the Headlines, brought to you by Alive. Good evening. I'm Shanique Miller. It's great to have you along this evening. Tonight, Minister Wilchcombe's body is at the morgue at the Princess Margaret Hospital here in New Providence. The Social Services Minister passed away early this morning on the island of Grand Bahama, the island where he was elected as Member of Parliament, the West End and Bimini constituency he fondly loved. Theo Seeley spoke with constituents and was at the Rand Memorial Hospital today. We take a look at this story.
Minister Wilchcombe, I remember as someone who had a radiant smile.
Family members and longtime supporters of the Progressive Liberal Party gathering outside the Rand Memorial Hospital and the PLP headquarters today to show their support and love for a man who many remember as the backbone of the PLP, a void which they say cannot be replaced, an unfathomable loss.
A tremendous loss. In fact, not only for the PLP, which is the majority now, but the entire Grand Bahama, Bimini, he could never be replaced.
That's Cynthia Donaldson, a PLP stalwart councillor. We interviewed her in the very same spot where Wilchcombe made his last appearance Sunday night at a PLP Women's Branch meeting here at the party's headquarters in Freeport, Grand Bahama. Donaldson shared what she remembered from that last encounter.
After he did his address, which was very timely, and he had a lot of compassion in his address, especially for the abuse of women. And afterwards, he went outside. He had to do a press release, but he stopped about a minute before he had to do the press release to meet a young lady who had to leave. And he made a comment, "This is as important as the press release. I'll get to the press release," which I thought was very humbling.
A move which she says is typical Obie Wilchcombe, a man of the people.
Wherever you met him, he was never, ever too busy to stop and listen, and as much as he can help, he would help.
Austin Bernard Davis, also a PLP stalwart councillor who spent many years working with the former cabinet minister, attended last night's PLP Women's Branch meeting. Austin recalls his last moment with the former MP.
It was a warm handshake and reflected one or two items on the past, never thinking anything could have been wrong at the time. He was in a good mood, he was in good spirits, and his expressions were, quite normal.
Now, in the wake of his passing, Austin fondly remembers Wilchcombe's contribution to country.
And I feel that he is one of the seasoned men of the party who have been able to, on his feet, fill any spot or any void on any program.
After wrapping up our chat with those long-serving PLP supporters at the party's headquarters, we made our way back to the Rand Memorial Hospital. At around 4:04 p.m., a pearl-colored casket was wheeled up the side entrance of that facility. By 4:16 p.m., Wilchcombe's family members returned. At around 4:27, the body of the late cabinet minister was wheeled out of the Rand Memorial Hospital and into this white hearse. At 4:35 p.m., the body of the late Obie Wilchcombe, former member of parliament for West End and Bimini, was escorted to the Grand Bahama International Airport by police to be flown back to the capital.
Now, prior to entering politics, Wilchcombe had a distinguished career as a journalist, joining the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas, ZNS, in 1975. During his 25-year career at ZNS, Wilchcombe gained a reputation as the reporter that got the job done. He took that commitment and professionalism to other posts. He served as Deputy Director of News, News Director, and Assistant General Manager. Now, Wilchcombe entered politics in August 1994 when he was appointed to the Senate by the late Sir Lyndon Pindling, the father of the nation. In 1995, he became chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party. Following the general election of 1997, Perry G. Christie, former Prime Minister, then Leader of the Opposition, reappointed Wilchcombe to the Senate. On May 2nd, 2002, Minister Wilchcombe took the oath of office as Minister of Tourism and achieved record-breaking figures in terms of tourist arrivals and expenditures. Wilchcombe most recently served under the now Davis administration as Minister of Social Services, pushing women's rights, gender equality, and much more to the forefront. His death is taking many by surprise, as he spoke, as you saw in Theo's story, just last evening at the Women's Branch meeting in Grand Bahama for the PLP. Joining me now is Minister of Environment and Minister Wilchcombe's media colleague at ZNS, Minister Vaughn Miller. Minister Miller, good evening to you. An incredibly sad evening for everyone and the PLP as well.
Yes, good evening to you, good evening to your listening audience. Indeed, a tremendously sad night, sad time.
I absolutely agree.
Today started off as a normal day. And when I saw on social media a picture saying that he was found unresponsive, I immediately began making calls, thinking, or hoping rather, there was no truth to it. Unfortunately, to find out that indeed it was true.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
I'm still shaken by it. Still, a part of me still doesn't want to accept it, don't believe it, but I know it's true. And so it's extremely challenging.
I agree. We'll talk more about it in a minute, but I want to go to Washington, D.C. because we have another colleague who is there, and she just stepped out of a meeting there in Washington, D.C., Judy Terrell. She's traveling with the Ministry of Health at the 60th PAHO meeting there in Washington, D.C. for directing counsel. Judy, I am so happy that you were able to step out of that meeting and join us very quickly. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Shanique. Good evening, Bahamas.
Now, you, like many of tonight's guests, enjoyed a relationship and a working relationship also with Minister Wilchcombe, a meticulous journalist and boss known for expecting nothing but the best from his reporters in the newsroom. How are you reflecting this evening?
Well, Shanique, honestly, it is still very much a shock to me. Obie was somebody who you just expected to be around for 1,000 years, honestly. But I have to tell you that the things that stand out most about him was his demand for excellence. And I recalled this earlier today when I was speaking with Michelle Malcolm on her show, that he was the type of person that would make you even research something that you were not covering. And I was actually introduced to someone I'll call the great Obie Wilchcombe back in 1990 when I joined ZNS as a cub reporter. And I was 3 days on the job when he assigned me to cover a fire in Kemps Bay, Andros. And of course, that was the constituency of Sir Lyndon Pindling. I was a ball of nerves, but he said, no, you're going to do it. I tried to talk him out of it. And he said, no, you're going to do it. And I went, and it forged a lot of good opportunities, new opportunities. Obie believed in the people he hired, and he demanded the best. And I am so grateful and blessed to have had somebody like him in my life, in my career, which established me in my country and allowed me to serve the people of the Bahamas. I am forever indebted to him for that opportunity as a young 19-year-old.
What do you think his commitment to this, I almost say to this very day, to his last breathing breath, really, to media and getting it right and to excellence did for media then and even now?
Shanique, what Obie Wilchcombe knew was that if you made the information accessible to people, and if you gave them everything they needed to know, they would be more empowered. And I think that was really the common thread in most of what he did. He wanted people to be empowered by information. And that, I think that leads to why he was so demanding of the journalists that worked with him and the journalists that he groomed. He didn't want us to leave out any detail. I can remember an incident in Montel Heights that I covered when the water went off, and he made a demand of me. He sent me back to do the story, actually. And at the time, I hated him for it. But honestly, he made you better. He made you want to be better. And that was something we look forward to coming to the newsroom at ZNS with Obie Wilchcombe. And I will have to say this, even when I left ZNS and branched off into another career, he still demanded that I be the best at that, you know? And so I think that's, once he had invested in you and really believed in you, he expected the best no matter what. I saw him on Thursday and we were kidding around and he said, at the relaunch and rebranding of ZNS, and he said, listen, I'm going to come and get you. You have to come to ZNS. And I laughed and I said, my minister is not going to let you work. Let me go. And we laughed about it, but that was Obie Wilchcombe. And so you wanted to do well and you wanted to be the best because you knew somewhere he was watching.
You're so right. You're absolutely right. I often got very nervous when I would have to address certain topics on this here platform because I know either Debbie Bartlett or somebody would kind of relay a message to me about maybe what I did, what I said. So you're absolutely right. And I never worked with him. That's why I love speaking with you all and the other guests this evening because what you share with him, but I interviewed him. Enjoyed certainly a relationship with him as well. I thank you very much for stepping out of your session there in Washington, D.C. Continue to do a great job there at the Ministry of Health. And thank you for speaking with us this evening on the passing of Obie Wilchcombe.
Shanique, if I may say this before I leave, thank you for this opportunity to share. It is certainly still trying to sink in because you don't see Obie Wilchcombe as passing. Obie is one of those people you expect to be around for a very long time. But God is infinite in all that he does and in his wisdom. And so I do want to extend condolences to his family and to his political colleagues and government colleagues, as well as to the ZNS family and to all who knew him and would have crossed paths with him. I want to say that the things that we should remember is that he really loved his country. And he smiled often when you talk about the Bahamas with him or things that were going on in the country. And I think the takeaway that I have from having that relationship with Obie would be that he always began most of our discussions with, did you know? So he sent you to the history books. And I think that is always the telltale or sign or the mark of somebody that wants you to be better. And so tonight, I do give God thanks for Obie Wilchcombe, for the life that he gave him, for the imprint that he's left on us. And I say, God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you for this opportunity, Shanique.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Judy, I thank you very much. A wonderful tribute to Minister Wilchcombe, Judy Terrell in Washington, D.C., reflecting on her relationship with Obie Wilchcombe, who again passed early this morning. We're going to continue our conversation with Minister Miller here, who enjoyed a working relationship with Obie. Let's just talk about that relationship. First of all, you were colleagues, you were co-workers. Then you guys were on the same, because ZNS had wonderful sporting teams at that time. You all played together. Then, of course, you all kind of faced off around the boardroom table as well. So, yeah, let's just talk about it.
It started off in terms of union. When I joined ZNS in 1986, I became a part of the union. And I eventually emerged as the union leader at the Broadcasting Corporation. Obie was always management. So we always, in that vein, always opposed each other. And so it was very, very controversial. We bucked heads in the union negotiations. And it was always us against them, you know, Miss Debbie Bartlett, Miss Michelle, Malcolm, Paulette, Zonica, and they were the elites in the Broadcasting Corporation.
No, they were.
Over on the television side.
Yes, yes.
Because we were always on the radio side.
That's true. There was the radio side and then the TV
you know,
side.
TV,
yes,
yes,
the TV.
yes.
Which side he liked most?
Oh, TV for sure. TV and news for
yes,
sure.
TV and news.
And I'm sure Miss Bartlett and Michelle Malcolm they will agree. I'm sure they will. But it grew out of that as I matured. We played sports together, as you said. We played basketball. Football was his first love. I never played football. Football was a quarterback. That was his first love. But we played basketball with ZNS, the Hill Thrillers. We didn't win the championship, Michelle. No, we didn't. But we felt like we won a couple, though. Really had fun. And it was during those times I really got to know him better and saw a different side, different perspective, and really got to respect him. You know, he was very intelligent, smart, very well read, very well versed. He very methodical in his approach and always thought things through. And he was a nationalist, loved this country, loved the Bahamas, proud Bahamian. We used to call him Lil Pending. I don't know if they used to call him TV, but on the radio side, we used to call him Lil Pending.
Oh, even from ZNS days?
Oh, we used to call him Lil Pending.
Because, I mean, obviously he got he became known as the Pending reporter, quite frankly, and did an amazing job with that it defined his career.
Pending had a tremendous influence on him and helped to mold him and really had a tremendous influence on him. So we used to tease him and call him Baby Pending. And when I left Broadcasting Corporation, he was Minister of Tourism in 2005. And it was through him that I was employed by tourism with the religious market in Plantation, Florida, where I was there for several years. And so we kept a good relationship. I was always Afrocentric. And so we sometimes we had some very good debates, didn't always see eye to eye, but my view was always very, very Afrocentric, and he always made sure to remind me of it sometimes. And in recent times, serving as colleagues, as cabinet colleagues, parliamentary and cabinet colleagues, as the leader in the House of Assembly, what he brought to it to me, he was always very well prepared.
Yeah.
Very well prepared. Yeah. Very well spoken.
And can speak so eloquently without making, a mistake off the top of his head.
And without a script in most
Without a
instances.
script. Did he memorize it? What did he do? Or he was just that passionate about whatever the topic was at the time?
Oh, he put his time in. He made a sacrifice. And he was always very well prepared. And he put the time. And if there's one thing I think journalists from the old school did, that's what they did. That's how they did it.
And that is what, and you would know this very well, that, and the others we'll talk more about that, but that is what sort of aggravated him in a way, the fact that today many of us are just skating by and not putting in that work, not putting in that time, not giving the respect to this industry that he so loved and knows it deserves.
You know, when he became involved in Broadcasting Corporation, it was a time when Bahamians were called on to be nation builders. I think he called the ending of that era. And he was called on to come home and help build his country. And so that was the mindset as a nationalist, as a nation builder, and as a proud lifelong PLP. That's what it was all about. And so everything you did, including broadcasting and journalism, he took it, his heart and soul into it, and he expected that from other persons. We didn't spend a lot of time in that because, like I said, that was the television side and the news side, and I was on the radio broadcast side on the gospel station. But he had a tremendous impact, a tremendous influence, took it very serious, and it was contagious with him and persons around him. In cabinet, always well-spoken, always very thoughtful, and you could tell he was prepared. And
what would you take away from him as cabinet colleague, as somebody who really just brought that same standard of excellence from media and broadcasting and ZNS to now the halls of Parliament and around the table?
Very well prepared, very well spoken. He thought like I said earlier, very methodical, and always thought and put thought into what he was doing, what he was saying, and he just was well prepared. And that's what impressed me so much with him. Always very well prepared, very well spoken, and stood his ground. In the House of Assembly, he would stand his grounds. And, you know, he was soft-spoken, but he could be a beast when necessary. Oh, he could fight with the best of them.
Yeah.
Oh, was not afraid to exchange words. Wasn't short on words, was not afraid to exchange words.
Yeah.
And when he had to, he did.
When he had to, he did.
But it was his preparation. It was his preparation that so impressed me. And you know, some people are like a fish in water in politics and broadcasting. Like he was born to do it, like a fish in water. And so when he had the opportunity to go back to the Broadcasting Corporation, to me, I wanted to see how it was going to unveil. Because I knew while he was at the Broadcasting Corporation, he had a tremendous, that passion and a vision.
And the passion
he
was
had a
still there.
tremendous vision for what he wanted it to be like. And so I saw this as someone having an opportunity to go and complete. You know, you start a book or you start a story, he now had an opportunity that he could conclude it. And it's unfortunate that that's not the case. I'd like to take this time to extend sincere condolences to his family and to his constituents and to Bahamians at large. And it's just a quote that I've adopted that says that death takes the body, God takes the soul. It says the mind holds the memories, the heart keeps the love. He said, now faith lets us know that we will see each other again. May his soul rest in peace.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our tribute to Obie Wilchcombe with other colleagues, more colleagues who are here, who worked alongside him as well for years. In fact, you heard Minister Miller talk about the superstars of ZNS, during Obie's days. Well, the superstars, the ones that he made superstars, they are here, and they will come and join this conversation after the break. Stay close. This is Beyond the Headlines, brought to you by Alive. Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines, brought to you by Alive. This evening, we are paying tribute to Minister Obie Wilchcombe, certainly, of course, known for serving in the Ministry of Tourism as the Consummate Tourism Minister and more recently as Minister of Social Services. Minister Wilchcombe, age 64, passed away this morning in Grand Bahama. He attended just last evening and spoke to a PLP women's event. And of course, the shock waves continue to ripple throughout the nation. Of course, you saw in the first segment, we spoke with Minister of the Environment and co-worker, colleague of Minister Wilchcombe at ZNS, and then, of course, colleagues around the table, the cabinet table in government, Vaughn Miller. We also heard from Judy Terrell, who is in Washington, D.C. on assignment with the Ministry of Health. And in this segment, we're going to continue our tribute to Obie Wilchcombe with TV personalities Debbie Bartlett and Michelle Malcolm. Ladies, good evening to both of you. It's wonderful seeing you both. You both have been certainly making the rounds today and is exchanging fond memories and paying tribute to someone who really has steered both of your careers. It's good to have you both here. Good evening once again. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Jenny. It's an absolute honor to be here.
Ladies, where do we even start? Just talk about the man that you all came up knowing as Obie, and together you created what really was the standard of media in this nation, sort of as the foundation of ZNS, and gave birth to that, and also launched such incredible, respected careers. Let's just talk about his role in making that happen in both of your careers to this day. Debbie?
I thought that Obadiah Hercules Wilchcombe was one of the most unfair bosses because he put the pressure on us. He demanded the best. But the best, when you don't know any better, would be misinterpreted by the things he required. Mm-hmm. I remember finishing an assignment about 20 to 1. I remember it because it was just a shock for me that in those days we had handheld, what do you call it, walkie-talkies in the vans that drove the reporters to their assignments and bring them back. And we got a call from Minister Wilchcombe. He was Obie, the director. He said, "You're the top story." I said, "What?" Because it was going to take us to get there at 1 o'clock. I can't tell you what that meant. So news was still
1 at that time.
It was
on
1
radio.
at that, yes, on radio. Mm-hmm. And listen, you had no idea what that meant because everybody, most people would go to the typewriter. We didn't have the computers at that time. Mm-hmm. Most people would go to the typewriter, listen to their tape, and then write the story, and then they were on for the next one. No, not me. I had to do it right then. Mm-hmm. And when that tally light went on, I had to sit and deliver. And he would press even further. I'd never forget the budget debate one year. He said, "Okay, I'm going to have you covered in the morning, 10 to 1 o'clock. And I came back, I did the report. He said, "Debbie, you going back, okay? I'm going to have somebody relieve you at 6. I said, "Okay, fine." 10 o'clock came, midnight. But wait a minute, now 10 o'clock I had to do a live from...
At 10?
At 10 in the night. Mm-hmm. I said, "Well, monkey do." Guess what? Now all of a sudden, he stopped taking my calls. You didn't have cell in those days.
So you couldn't reach him on the ground line.
I had to say, and I wasn't woman enough to leave.
He ran a strict newsroom.
Oh, no, yes. Let me tell you, finish the story.
Go right ahead, absolutely,
and I can let Michelle, because I'm sure she has the stories. 8 o'clock that morning, just about 7, he called and said, I need you to stay there because that was about the time the budget was wrapping up.
And this is from overnight now?
This is from overnight. This is from 10 o'clock that morning. I need you to stay there. I'm sending a van for you to go live at 8. Oh, yes. So you can imagine how I felt. It was.
But that was good discipline those days.
Great discipline,
I think
yes.
Once I worked overnight, not with him. I don't know who was the news director then, but I remember getting off like 3, 4 in the morning with a budget debate when they had it overnight. But Michelle, let's just hear about how this strict disciplinarian, because when I got into the ZNS newsroom, all I can hear about, oh, you're lucky. Michelle, it might have been you telling me, oh, you're lucky, you only never had to work with Obie, son.
Well, hearing Debbie tell that story, at least I feel better now because I thought I was the only one who gets swinged with that. I can send somebody to relieve you. Because I too had to work through the night one time covering the budget debate, literally all night. And the next morning came, I made the mistake of going home just to catch myself before I filed my report. And I hadn't eaten because literally the whole night I'm covering the House of Assembly, and I decided to stop to a fast food restaurant to get something to eat and fall out cold in the people restaurant. Fall right out.
Wow.
And when I finally came to it, with all these people standing, that's the girl from ZNS. So when I finally got home, Mommy said, what took you so long? I said, boy, Mommy, I fall out in the place. She said, I'm going to go deal with your boss right now. I said, no, I got this one. I got this. And when I went back to the station, I said, Obie, why didn't you send somebody to relieve me? And Obie said, I said, I didn't have anybody. I said, why didn't you come? I was watching football. Well, listen.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, Shanique, you know me. Oh, we had it out that day. But this is what he did to make you better. You know what I mean? At the time, you thinking, this man, if I had the will of him. But in hindsight, some of the things that Obie did, I give him a lot of credit for helping to mold me into the journalist that I eventually became. Because he demanded excellence of us. There was no such thing as you getting off when your shift ends. No, you ain't had no shift. Your shift ends when you finish that story. And the thing I have to say, though, is that Obie, it was really a family environment working in that news department. We were a family. We weren't just colleagues, but we really were a family. And you know, I heard Debbie talking on an interview today on another station about how Obie would often reach into his pocket. And I have to tell you all this story about him doing that for me as a young reporter. That doesn't pay us no money. They really, that was slave labor, right? Because we weren't making much money. And I got a ticket. I can't remember why I got the ticket, but for some reason I got a traffic ticket, and I ignored it because I had no money to pay it. And then a couple of weeks later, the police showed up with a summons, so I had to go before the court. And when I got before the court, eventually it was my turn to go to the judge. Well, clearly I didn't have any money for a lawyer, so I had to represent myself. And the judge says, Ms. Malcolm, why are you here? I said, well, you know, I have this ticket that I didn't pay. How do you plead? I said, guilty with an explanation. So he said, what could your explanation be? I said, well, I had no money to pay the ticket, so. He says, you know, you could go to jail for that? I said, well, that don't make no sense, Your Honor, because if you put me in jail, I just can't pay the ticket. So he laughed. He said, you have until 3 o'clock to have that money back here, or you will be taken to jail. I said, mother sec. So I go back to ZNS, and I beg Obie. I said, Obie, please, please, please. I can't go to jail. Obie, please, please, please. And I told him what happened. And Obie paid that fine for me. But this was the type of person that he was. You know,
I understand he was also the type of person, too, that would take a script when you all thought this is the best story. Oh, my God, here's our story, we're done. And he'd be like, what? Nonsense.
What is this garbage? What is this garbage? And he'll ball it up and throw it back in your face. Do it again. And you looking at him like, if I had the will of this man. But it made us better.
Yeah, but you know, he never tore up any of my scripts. But
Oh, Debbie, you were always that good, huh?
no. But I'll tell you how he would correct mine, right? I'll never forget. One time we were in the newsroom. I submitted that script to edit, and he said, "Oh, fine, good." And I look, he come back out here and say, "Let's reconsider that script. Let's look at now, and let's think about it." You know, he was just ashamed because he didn't catch it the first time. He went in his office and he thought about it. But he knew when to be a diplomat, and you know, he would be fast when he believes something strongly. But then you can't stay mad at him for too long, though. You agree with that, Michelle?
Absolutely.
You cannot stay mad with him because he'll start laughing, and he'll laugh at his own jokes, and you start laughing at how hard he's laughing at his jokes. But no, he was really exceptional in pushing people to the next step, and he expected and demanded excellence. Listen to me. I left the, like Michelle said, we couldn't leave. There was no shift, and you don't have any excuse. So one day I must have left about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I thought I would be smart, and I got the production assistant, I think it was George Harris, to stay with me to finish my report, because you had to have your report for the next newscast. And so I was smart. I stayed 4 or 5 o'clock, and I said, well, I guess I could come to work about an hour or so late. Man, I got to work, must see, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, may have been 9. I think I had an early morning shift. And he came up to me, how come you just reached? And I said, what do you mean? What time is your shift? I say, 8 o'clock, sir. You're late. I say, but I just left here, 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't care, your shift starts 8.
Wow.
Not 9.
Wow.
That's how he goes.
Wow.
So he had an eye for talent.
Yes.
And he believed and could see the talent in someone before they saw it in themselves. And even though there were times when we did not agree, and I say we, the collective in the newsroom, he would always, I remember Sherman Brown. We always said that Sherman Brown, as an example, this is what I would say about Sherman, but he saw Sherman Brown first. He would see the potential because Sherman Brown had the biggest, and still has, one of the biggest noses for news. And as he was training Sherman, he made sure that he got the greatest exposure in the family of violence, so that he had that room to grow. And it turns out that Sherman, probably a reporter, I think besides myself and Diana Swan, and Michelle Malcolm, we probably traveled the family islands more than anybody. But the point is whatever it takes for you to grow, as long as you're willing, he'll facilitate that.
Yeah, really awesome. In my day, Sherman was still owning the family islands. You wouldn't dare try go on some family island trip with him there. But listen, ladies, the last time we were together with him, when was that, August?
That was August before 13.
Yeah, and several hours we sat and spoke with him. It came back so fresh just now when you said his big laugh, and man, did he laugh that night. We were together until just before midnight. We didn't even know what time it was. We just enjoyed that conversation. And here was a man who still was passionate about media, still wanted media done right, and was excited about bringing some of those thoughts and ideas to ZNS, yes?
Yeah, I think by then he already knew that he was going to get the ZNS portfolio, even though it hadn't been announced as yet. And during that marathon meeting that we had in his office that evening, there was a lot of talk about what he wanted to see in broadcasting, what he hoped to to, you know, some of the changes that he thought were needed there. I mean, we did a lot of reminiscing and laughing about the good old days.
Stories.
And,
Y'all,
yeah.
listen, you all think these are stories. No. Obie Wilchcombe has some stories along with these ladies about the many personalities that passed through ZNS. And again, as I said, the foundation of what that corporation came to be. And you all did media right because of that kind of discipline and just a meticulous eye for getting it right. But no, that really was a beautiful evening, Michelle. You're so right.
Can I add that what he talked about, the essence of what he talked about, was also his desire to see the experience to who have left mainstream media to get back in it, to further strengthen the media community. Clearly, there's a lot of talent there in the media, but he wanted to see more. And to get more was to get more experience. He was always visionary and always looking to see how we can become better.
How will you both remember him? You each can, and I know Carlisle give this to me. So how will you each remember Obie Wilchcombe, who has been so impactful in your lives throughout the years to this day?
Well, Obie and I had a very complex relationship. I admire him. I will always be grateful to him for the role he played in helping to mold me as a journalist. But boy, Obie and I had some drag-out fights over the years. Because if he said something, or he, brought something into the newsroom that I didn't agree with, I'd say, I don't agree with it. And we would go at it, so I remember him in many ways. I remember him as a mentor, as someone who definitely, like I said, helped to mold me as a journalist, as somebody that you could spar with. But at the end of the day, no matter how you disagreed or argued or whatever, there was always a mutual respect. And he's going to be missed. His shoes will be hard to fill. There's only one Obie Wilchcombe. The Lord broke them open and he finished with it. And, I'm just, one of the things that he said that night in that long meeting that I'll never forget, he said, it's the reason God brought us back together this time.
You're right.
He didn't think that was an accident.
Wow.
And I'm hoping that we obviously continue that legacy, that he would have impacted our lives and we go on to impact the lives of others, particularly the younger broadcast and journalists in the country. I'm really hoping that journalists begin to receive the respect that he thought we deserved, because he talked about that.
He absolutely did, yeah.
And that we continue to see our role in building this nation. So that's how I'm going to remember Obie.
I want to talk a little bit about how I remember him in the Ministry of Social Services for a moment in my personal life. In the Ministry of Social Services, his compassion for people was confirmed. There were things that did not meet the headlines but made a difference in so many people's lives. They had a 20-year career plan, and he executed it. For the first time, with some folks there at the Ministry of Social Services not having an increase and being on that 52-week program for over 20 years, over 200 people were promoted. The team there, the leadership team, phenomenal. And I'm speaking and expressing condolences on behalf of the permanent secretary, the undersecretaries, the director, the deputy permanent secretaries with Melvin Simonet and Ms. Cooper, etc. Listen to me. They said they have never seen so many people from the communities come to see a minister because of his heart. So for the first time, he exceeded what was ever spent in those people who found themselves in the pit of trials. He took it to another level for the disabilities with Nalini Bethel and Desiree Clark. He moved, and it's ironic that today in the papers, I think it's The Guardian, where he is making the headlines because with Miss Simonette and Elaine Sands and Cheryl Knowles and all the good people of gender, he fought and he stood with issues that were on pause and that seemed to have been delayed for one reason or the other.
His commitment, Debbie, was that he wants to make social services what he made tourism.
Absolutely.
A superstar
and you know what he said? My mission is to get social services out of the junk mail of the minds of Bahamians, because this is one of the most important ministries that we have.
I thank you very much, Debbie Bartlett, Michelle Malcolm. We, of course, have Miranda Innes in studio as well. She worked with him, I believe with him, but certainly as him being acting general manager in Grand Bahama. And so, of course, she worked at the ZNS Grand Bahama station. And she also, again, joining all of us and just remembering Obie Wilchcombe. And she even worked with him more recently. I know, guys, I hear it. I'm out. Michelle Malcolm, Debbie Bartlett, Vaughn Miller, Judy Terrell, thank you all so much. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in this evening. We certainly enjoyed having you along. And we look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow evening. Our hearts and our thoughts, prayers are with the family and loved ones of Obie Wilchcombe.